Let's talk about one of the most intimidating numbers in all of business. I'm talking about the new product failure rate. For decades, there's been this single, scary statistic that has completely dominated the conversation. But what if that number is basically a myth? Today, we're going to unpack the real odds of success, and it's all based on some pretty incredible research. But first, let me ask a question to every single marketer, innovator, or brand manager listening right now. What's that one fear that just hangs over every single new launch? You know the one. It's that nagging thought that after all the research, all the development, all that investment, it might just fail.
And this is the number that fuels that fear, 80%. You've probably heard it. You've probably even quoted it. It's the number that's thrown around all the time for the failure rate of new products. And a number that high, well, it can paralyze decision-making. It makes innovation feel more like buying a lottery ticket than a smart business strategy.
This belief has real consequences, you know? As the researchers behind this study put it, this whole story we tell ourselves makes new product investments seem overwhelmingly risky. But what if that number, that story, just isn't true?
Okay, so let's dig into it. To get to the truth, we have to move past the anecdotes, past the scary stories, and look at the actual data. And the data we're about to look at comes from a massive study that analyzed what really happens to new products out there in the wild.
And just look at the sheer scale of this thing. We are not talking about a small survey here. This study looked at over 83,000. That's right, 83,000 new products. It covered 31 different consumer goods categories, over 8 years of data, all in the US market. This is a serious heavyweight analysis. And we need to be super clear on something. What failure means here. It has a very specific definition in this study. It doesn't mean a product missed its sales forecast by a little bit. Nope. It means the permanent cessation of sales. In other words, the product completely disappeared from the market. It was delisted, gone for good. So with that definition in mind and all that data, what did the researchers actually find? Let's get to the number that really, truly matters. And here it is, the reality check. After 1 full year on the market, only 1 in 4 new products, just 25%, have actually failed. A quarter, not 80%. This paints a completely different picture of risk, doesn't it? Okay, so what if we extend that timeline out to 2 years? Well, the cumulative failure rate does rise. It goes up to 41%. Now, that's still a significant number. Launching a new product is absolutely not a guaranteed win, but it is still less than half of that mythical 80% figure we're always hearing about. So let's just put it side by side. The myth says 80 to 95% of new products are doomed from the start. The reality, based on all this market data, is a 2-year failure rate of 41%. The risk is absolutely real, it's substantial, but it's not the near-certain disaster that everyone talks about. But you know, that 41%, that's just the average. The story gets so much more interesting and honestly way more useful when we start digging into the specific things that can actually raise or lower your odds of success. All right, first up, category size. You know, conventional wisdom might tell you that launching into a big, high-revenue category is the smart play. I mean, that's where the money is, right? But does that bigger market actually help you, or does it hurt you? Well, the data here is a little surprising. The 2-year failure rate for new products in those large categories is actually 45%. That's significantly higher than the 36% failure rate in smaller categories. And why is that? Well, bigger markets just attract more launches, more competition, making it a much tougher place for any one new product to survive. Okay, next big question. What about the power of your brand? Does having a large, established name with deep pockets and wide distribution actually give you a safety net when you're launching something new? And on this one, the data pretty much lines up with what you'd guess. New products coming from small brands face a 48% failure rate. But for the big brands, that rate drops down to 41%. Having more resources, better brand recall, and wider distribution, it gives the big guys a clear, measurable advantage. So we've busted the myth and we've uncovered some key risk factors. So what does this all actually mean for you and for your next product launch? Let's try to distill everything we've just learned into a practical playbook. So what's our playbook? First things first, forget the 80% rule. Your real risk is closer to 40%. That's a much more manageable number to plan around. Second, think twice before you just jump into those big, crowded categories. They might look appealing, but the competition is fierce and the risk is higher. Third, if you're a big brand, you've got to leverage that advantage. And if you're a smaller brand, you just have to be extra strategic and really amplify your marketing to overcome that higher risk. And finally, here's a fascinating little insight. Brands that are already growing have the lowest failure rates of all, just 26%. It turns out momentum is an incredibly powerful force.
So, at the end of the day, what's the takeaway here? The goal isn't to get rid of risk. That's impossible. It's to understand it, manage it, and plan for it. Just knowing that your real odds of failure are closer to 4 in 10, not 8 in 10, that changes everything. It moves the whole conversation from one of fear to one of strategy. So the final question is for you. Knowing the real odds, how are you going to support your next launch?